I thought about university before tonight, and I did a marketing degree like 20 years ago, depressingly. And my marketing professor, Mr. Keith Hanning, he used to speak about production-orientated businesses and market-orientated businesses. And his lesson was about the best businesses in the world and market-orientated. And in these businesses, marketing isn't a department. Brand doesn't sit in a team. It's owned by everybody. And I remember being like super inspired by that lecture. And then I got a job and realized it was a fucking lie. Like, I've never seen it in 20 years. I'm still yet to see it. But when sorry for swearing, by the way, I should have, oops. When I spoke to the Autotrader team, I remembered that lesson for the first, I'd forgotten the lesson, and I remembered it because some of the things they were saying spoke to that promise. So I'm hoping that, no pressure, I'm hoping that comes out of our discussion. James has introduced that we've got Rox and Ben. I've got a few little fun facts I'm going to share before we get going. So Rox, I just found out it's her birthday today, which is ridiculous. And like, talk about being positively lovely, like coming and giving your time to us instead of being spoiled rotten by your kids and you felt like it's ridiculous. So I really appreciate it. And then in my little investigation, I found out, I just wanted to know, were there any weird jobs that Rox and Ben had done in their past? And Rox used to work for Fabric, the nightclub in London. And her job was, she used to get, this is not a joke, she used to get a cup of limes. And when she saw someone like had possibly had too much to drink or too much whatever on the floor, she had to put a lime in their gob to resuscitate them. And that was her job. Anyway, I thought it was really cool. But your grown-up job now is head of brand, is that right?
Yes, that is right, yeah.
Head of brand at Autotrader. And then we have Ben, who is the product director at Autotrader. And the two fun facts I found out about Ben, he's double jointed. Could we get have we got a little demo?
Double jointed.
I mean, that was kind of weird.
I did say I had no interesting facts to provide.
You said no interesting facts, and then we found that one.
You teased them out.
And then he used to be a used car dealer.
Briefly, yes.
Briefly, okay. I'm being mean because it was a technology company, I think.
But I was selling and delivering some cars.
Okay, very good.
At the coalface.
Very good. And that kind of actually it's good experience for the job, maybe. Okay, let's move on. So let's set the scene. I've kind of given you a flavour of the nature of the kind of conversation is going to happen. I'm going to go to Rox first, and I just want to know, we were talking about brand out there and the difference between, some companies call brand different things. And I just want to know, in your words, what's the kind of brand definition at Autotrader?
Yeah, I would say it's going through a change at the moment, but brand at Autotrader is reputation plus consumer perception, customer and consumer experience, and then also how we're readying ourselves for the future. So with that, we do have a marketing function, but brand is really owned by everyone. It's a business asset. And we talk a lot about how people perceive us, how we perceive ourselves, and brand is wrapped up in that. And when we talk about how we're shifting what brand means to us and to consumers, we're on that journey right now where we are thinking about what brand means to Autotrader and how that comes across and shows up in those different places.
Is it likely that, you've not got a definition that is going to be fixed then from that answer?
Exactly,
It feels like the definition actually could continue to change.
Yeah, so what brand means for employer brand is different to customer brand, consumer brand, or investor brand. Well, it started last summer really, didn't it? Where we started to think about what's the common thread between all of those areas. For what brand means to Autotrader, and I think it's more about like what feels very true to us. Yeah. So,
do you have the answer? So, what is that common thread? Do you have the answer to that, or is the work kind of trying to find the answer?
Yeah. So for consumer brand, we did a lot of work last summer around defining what role we play for the consumer, and a lot of work came from that. and the result was this line that car buyers deserve real choices. And what we mean by real choices is choice in how you buy your car, like ways to buy your next vehicle, what you buy. You can buy from a really a massive range, like we were saying, like nearly 500,000 vehicles on site, and then the intelligent tools to inform you being able to buy in the way that you want. So brand is then how we, like, for us, it's how we communicating that in a way that solves the customer problem and in the most meaningful way for them. So that's the piece of work that we've done from last summer. And now it's how we can make sure that we feel that, and that feels very true to us at Autotrader, and how we can then communicate that externally to the consumer in a meaningful way. So yeah, that's the journey that we're on, but where brand is for us right now, Autotrader.
Let me flip to Ben. I've got a good one for you, Ben. It's not hard. I think you like it. So I want to know, is there a moment where the stuff Rox is speaking to that you realised that brand wasn't just a marketing thing in the product team?
It's probably broader than product, actually. I'm not sure if I should share this example, but I'll use it anyway. Like, there was a few years ago, we pitched to be the sponsor of the bike scheme in Manchester, the one that Starling Bank run. And for us, it was like a perfect opportunity. It was about the future of transport. It was about sustainability. It was about like being involved in the Manchester community. They're all things that like are deeply important to us, and that anyone who knows Autotrader well would think that we are a great fit for that. But when we were shortlisted for that and got down to the final views, the mayor or whoever it is, Manchester, didn't feel that was our brand was appropriate for that, and they selected a bank instead. And that was like a real kind of wake up moment for us, because for our trade customers who use Autotrader, they know us as a like leading data and technology provider for the automotive sector. For our investors, they know us as like one of the most admired tech businesses on the FTSE 1 exchange. For anyone that's part of the Manchester, who works for us, Autotrader, or comes to our events, they know that we're a like progressive, inclusive employer. But yet, the vast majority of the UK population, they know us as something else. And they were the people who were making decisions about whether our brand was appropriate to stick on some shared bikes in Manchester, which kind of made us, it made us realise that the way different people experience our brand across our different stakeholder groups had become quite fragmented. Because when we say brand, like what brand, when we didn't really, we do now, we didn't have a centralised brand team that was looking across all of those different areas. Brand for us would have been the consumer brand, who would have had a very specific set of KPIs or objectives to create advertising, have an employer brand that's responsible for putting on great events like this and showcasing Autotrader as an employer, but no one was connecting all of those threads together.
It feels like my brain has immediately gone to like, this is culture and leadership work to do that. To pull that off, that feels like it can't be a little.
Oh, massively, yeah. It was huge, and we're sort of 2 years into this journey, which has required like org changes, people changes, like making sure that we, where there were hard boundaries between bits of the organisation, finding ways to kind of overlap those with leadership teams that have a collective responsibility for not just consumer brand and consumer product, but consumer across both of those.
So we've to that point, instead of having a marketing team and a product team, we have built a structural consumer collective team which has leadership from across engineering, product, data science that meet up regularly to discuss, who all have a vested interest in how we're perceived across those different areas, right? And one of those being the consumer, to be able to provide strategic direction to then, like, we make decisions in that group on how we want to set marketing and product priorities that we're kind of working together towards the same goal rather than us setting those separately. So like marketing KPIs would have been set in a room separately to product KPIs and priorities. So now those are shared, which is
so like incentives are fundamental. Like the incentives in the business have been changed. Like some of the big KPIs that people are kind of, their jobs, their career progression is influenced by, presumably. Like they've changed, have they?
We've become a greater sense of shared ownership of. So like the brand KPI. Yeah. We would have previously had first to term metrics, brand health, all the things that we were measuring brand tracking that were the responsibility of the brand team. Go ahead, look after those, measure them. Yeah. The reality is the people who are creating our marketing and comms are playing a part in how we would change consumers' perceptions. But when we've got 10 million people a month using our website and app, there's a lot more people than they're going to see our YouTube ads or social content. So if we want to influence brand metrics, it's the responsibility of anyone that's making anything that consumers interact with, not just the people that make our TV ads and comms. Yeah, it's like it's owned media, I suppose. You're thinking of it as owned. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. It feels like with these changes, I want to go back to Rox. Is there anything that you've had to give up, like some control you've had to give up? Do you know what I mean? We kind of sometimes like having, the control freak in us wants all the control. And it feels like you've had to give some of that up.
Probably, but I don't think that's concerning. I don't think it should, I guess, be controlled by one particular team, right? We can just help provide the tools and guidance to help people be able to make those decisions across the business with autonomy that are aligned with our brand purpose, values, promise, etc. And as well, we're a business that's nearly 50 years old. So consistency isn't something that is necessarily there. We've talked about some challenger brands, and my background's startup, scale-up land, where brand consistency is relatively easy because you're only got one person doing it. Right. Whereas, I guess I don't think any of us are that hung up on having too much control over consistency right now, but also there is a definite drive and want to provide consistency going forward where we can, but to do that we have to build the right foundations and frameworks, which for a business of this size, and as I was saying, this is all a work in progress for us, that it can only improve. So where we not too hung up on having control, because I don't think we have that much control anyway. And that's okay.
Autotrader is a super collaborative organisation, and the people that succeed here have to be able to collaborate with people from all across the organisation. I can imagine if you weren't naturally that collaborative and you wanted to be a marketeer, staying in your lane, creating great adverts or whatever comms you're creating, but you didn't really want to listen to input from other people because they're not marketeers, so what do they know? Then you might find it difficult, because at some point within Autotrader, an engineering director or a data scientist or a product person is going to input into your strategy, your comms, and go, that doesn't feel right, or what we're saying there isn't actually reflective of the reality of the thing that we've built or we're building. You have to be able to operate in that super collaborative environment, because all those people want the best outcome for Autotrader.
And trying to have too much control over something, we don't want it to feel like we're gatekeeping. That's not the role of any one team or person in the organisation. And as well, by keeping it quite open and fluid, it allows for us to test and iterate and develop as we go, rather than having this brand that's controlled and quite rigid, which is not what we want. we're trying to change that. We're trying to change a historical brand perception because that feels so different to how we are and how we operate as a business.
I kind of love the point that you make, though, going back a few sentences, that you don't have control anyway. In a big old organisation, and that's not meant as an insult, but okay, business with 50 years of history, like no one's got control with the size that you've got. So it's kind of a misconception to think you can. Anyway.
But you can give people better tools that help them.
Right. You mentioned tools. What examples of tools have you got, like where marketing or the brand team have given tools to engineering, or like have you got some specifics you could share?
Well, our head of copy keeps on talking about Rox's boxes, doesn't he?
Go on. Rox's boxes.
Oh
Is it
my
like the
gosh.
lime thing?
Yeah, maybe.
Go on.
No. Oh, go on.
Well, I like everyone, like every individual person that's making anything, whether it is a PowerPoint deck or an email or a social post or an asset or photography, like you assume they've got the best of intentions. They're trying to like do the right thing.
Yeah.
But if you've given people no common assets or tools, they're just going to like download a photograph from Getty or like choose some colours that they like or change the logo because it doesn't work within the format that they're trying to. So we're definitely not trying to create the brand police, but we are trying to create a much broader toolkit of things that people can use to say, if you use these things, it should feel like it's from Autotrader. So
And that comes back to the point I made at the start, where we're trying to get to the heart of like what feels very Autotrader. We talk about like these things feeling very Autotrader-y, and that being what our brand is. And so
Rox's boxes was an attempt to try and connect those things between like our strategy and what we realized. Obviously Rox joined last year, and what she helped us understand was the missing piece was like talking about our personality as a brand, because we would say like, I don't like that color, or that logo doesn't feel right, or like, and our conversation was always at the asset level, and we realized we were missing the kind of shared understanding of our like personality as a brand. So it sounds like as a non-brand person, when someone talks about brand personality, I would have historically rolled my eyes a little bit, and but actually it was really helpful to help understand how to connect all those different things together.
And then how the personality, how you form the brand personality from your brand values and the consumer role and purpose that we put together, and then ultimately against the company purpose of driving change together responsibly. So all of these things coming from the top, right down to a channel and asset level, so that people can understand the context of why, like how it all links up, right?
Yeah. Let me go back to maybe it isn't a point you made, Ben, but this is how it landed in my head, because you're talking about when you hire people, you want people that are going to be collaborative, and my feeling was that if you got these people that maybe want ultra control over certain marketing or brand things, they're probably not going to fit in. And it made me think, when you hire someone, say you hire someone that's non-traditional marketing background, how do you, like, what are the things that you do early on to, I don't want to say indoctrinate, but expose them to this way of thinking and way of working? Like, is it in the interview process? Is it early? Like, what are you doing for non-marketing? So I want to ask you first, but please. So
I guess across the whole of Autotrader, how do we make sure that we're hiring the right people and onboarding them into the culture?
But with this brand idea specifically in mind?
So it's actually making me reflect, because when we hire people at the moment, when we onboard them, we've got like super strong values, and we hire against them. And I think more so than anywhere I've worked before, our values like feel like they're meaningful and deeply embedded in how we work. We've also, it sounds really cheesy, but we've got a poem which basically...
Are we going to hear it?
We recite it every morning when we raise the flag in the office, which basically describes, is an attempt to describe like how we work at our best. I'm not going to try and recite it, but like we do. But I guess what I'm saying is, what we don't do is any sort of onboarding about like the Autotrader brand, and maybe we should like around
That's
like this is
in the works.
like, it's almost like these are the things that we value in people. This is how we like to work, and like this is who Autotrader is as a brand. This is like our personality, and this is how we show up. And it, you know, that is not just something that the marketing team that are making external comms for. It's not just important for them. It's important for anyone that's, you know, making any kind of creative that people see, or even people that are speaking on the phone with our
Just
customers.
joining the business, yeah. Yeah.
Well, it can't, look, Rox opened by saying you're evolving your thinking on this. You've not solved this. So I find it
Any
quite...
ideas?
I always find it like, saying, oh, we could maybe consider that. I find that like quite impressive, actually, from a business that like yours. Like, it kind of speaks to you're open to the next iterations, evolution of this thing. Let me ask, because it's your birthday, we're not keeping you till 9. I'm going to ask a question each to you both, and then I'll take 3 from the floor. So if you've got any good questions in your head, get them ready to go. So let me go to Ben first. So what did I write down here? Okay. You meet a product director who loves the sound of a lot of the stuff that you're doing at Autotrader and thinks, well, I'd like my business to work in a similar way. What do you think step number 1 is for that person or business?
I think you've got to look at the org structure you've got today and ask why you might find that difficult today. So like, you know, whenever organisations are big groups of people, and the way you make that manageable is by drawing a line around a group of people and say, you're now the marketing team and you're now the product team. And like the reality is those lines are like they're just people that are working and they've got specific skills. So yes, obviously they come together as a community, but as soon as you could draw a line around people, give them identity, they're like, oh, I'm now this team, and I'm going to like, I've got the back of all my teammates, and I'm going to go into like, you know, it's like, I mean, it happens at school with football teams or whatever, doesn't it? It's like it's human nature. Yeah. But like whenever you draw, guess what I'm trying to say? Whenever there's a artificial line in part of the organisation, it's always hard to work across that. Like product person has got to go and speak to marketing person to understand what their objectives are. So I guess what we've tried to do is, where we recognise that's hard, more consciously overlap parts of the organisation at a leadership level to say, well, let's create this group of people that have a shared collective responsibility for this thing, rather than like a head of marketing speaking to a head of product, trying to figure out the things that, you know, how they're going to stack their respective priorities up alongside each other. Yeah,
and measured probably with measured and rewarded with different measures, like probably.
Well, I think, you know, a previous iteration of our marketing team was called the audience and brand team, and that was like specifically what they were measured on, like audience, like get people to come to Autotrader, brand, manage the brand health metrics, but no accountability for like what those people did when they came to the site. And that's not, I'm not saying that was bad or was the wrong thing for Autotrader at the time, but like we're in a different place now where we recognise there's a group of people that are collectively collectively responsible for things across consumer. It's now not just like products. We can't just go, oh well, it doesn't work because like marketing haven't brought the right people to the site. It's all of our responsibility.
Cool. Good answer. Rox, your last one for me is, what one thing do you wish you'd known at the start? So did you say 18 months ago? When did this start?
Well, it would have started last summer. So
we probably started like talking more seriously about brand and evolving it at Autotrader about 18 months ago.
Okay. So I want to know, with the experience and knowledge and things that have happened since then, what one thing do you wish you'd known at the start that would have helped or have avoided pitfalls? I don't know.
So I joined the business 6 months ago.
Oh, fuck.
This is the start. We're still at the start. This is a long process. It's a 2-year journey. So knowing that, yes, we're 18 months in, but we're not doing this as a short-term thing. And I think that it's just readying yourself that this isn't a quick fix or a quick solve, and being excited by that as a challenge. Which, I guess day one, I didn't really think about how long it would take for this to truly start to embed in the business. And when I say that, I mean like the measures of success here are engineers having discussions with each other, talking about our brand principles as part of that conversation that help them make decisions. That would be great. Or using customer-centric insight to make decisions, or where I might see something that another team is doing that might be absolutely brilliant, and it be totally aligned with the brand frameworks and principles that we've provided to the organization, but they've just been able to do that completely autonomously and haven't needed to ask or escalate.
I feel it kind of speaks to like a life lesson that keeps hitting me in the head is that thinking that there's gold at the end of the rainbow, or like, this goal at the end, like getting excited about it, usually makes me feel disappointed. Getting quite excited about the journey and these little examples of things that you're talking about is actually the trick. That's what I'm getting from. Anyway, okay, I'm going to put it to the floor. Do we have any questions? Yes, Hadi. Yes, please.
Great to be here, first of all. My wife always says she gets confused by my questions, so I'll try my best to be as clear as possible. Probably speak for a lot of guys. So if you think about your ideal customers from maybe 40, 50 years ago to your ideal customer today, how are they different, and how has the mindset changed as well?
In the organization, the mindset changed.
From the customers, so the customers of Autotrader from 40, 50 years ago to the ideal customers of today, how has those ideal customers changed, and maybe how has the mindset changed of the customers?
Well, I guess 40 years ago they were looking at a magazine. Autotrader was a magazine, right? Whereas now,
in order for us to continue to be relevant, we were relevant 40 years ago and we're relevant now, so we've had to evolve loads of things to continue to be relevant for large proportions of society. Sorry, what was the...
So what was your ideal customers from 40, 50 years ago to today? So, and how has the mindset changed of the customers? I'm trying to figure out, how people buy cars, what did they look like 40 years ago and what do they look like today? Or is it still the same?
Well, the expectation's different and the process is a lot more complicated than it might have been 40, 50 years ago. There's so many different ways you can buy or sell or lease your next car in a way that probably wasn't decades ago.
But I think the thing that the product does today is still the same thing that the product did 40 years ago, which was obviously there's an awful lot of amount of choice. You can't physically go and look at every single car that's available on a forecourt. So the magazine used to bring that together into a format that was easy to interact with. And I think the website and the app still continue to do that.
But what we do now, because we recognise there's a few more consumer barriers, pain points, overwhelm, and other things like cultural market factors and conditions that might influence how the things that go into their decision making, or when they become an active move from passive to thinking actively about purchasing the next car. Things like building out our on-site content strategy in a way that we might not have done a few years ago, to provide more reassurance, confidence, clarity to consumers throughout that process, because it is just so much more complicated in a way that we might not have needed to in the magazine or even a decade ago.
But I think part of your question is also highlights something we've also always struggled with, which is we are a broad, very broad business for the whole of the UK market. So we don't have a clear archetype or persona. We don't just target this type of person. If you're like a first-time buyer, if you're a very experienced car buyer, if you're a car dealer, if you're buying an electric car for the first time, these are all like, it's very hard to come up with like a small number of personas for like our definition of an ideal customer, because the reality is we're a product and a brand that's used by like the majority of the UK population for very different things.
In that segment, do you have more in one area than the other? So like first time buyers, do you have a lot more of them than say someone that's experienced that buying?
We do have areas of our brand tracking that we're
more interested in at the moment. So we've been looking at where is the opportunity to, where does the opportunity present itself in a like most interesting way for both those entering the category for the first time, but also those who are maybe looking for their second or third purchase, so that they've gone through the process before, they would kind of know what they're looking for a little bit, to be able to use our really great search functionality better than someone that doesn't know what they're looking for at all, but also has an understanding of how complicated and complex the process is because they've done it once or twice before. So that basically either those entering the category, so people just passing their test, or those that are looking to buy their second or third car, so they're probably mid-20s, mid-30s, is presenting itself as a more interesting category for us to start to like look at more than we have previously.
Another question. Yes, please.
Can I ask, how do you measure changes in your brand perception? Like looking back to the case you said about the Manchester City Council, when they didn't choose you to be a sponsor for the bike scheme. Is there anything that you're like, okay, we want people to think this about us? How do you measure? Do they think? Did it change?
Yeah, we just do. It's just included in our hygiene brand tracking. So we just ask a question. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but we have a list of statements, and we just track over time where we up or down weight across each of those statements.
Do you ask the audience, your target group, or how do you? I mean,
so that's just to consumers, like thousands of people within the brand tracker. Are you asking our customers?
I'm just wondering, like how you measure, because obviously it will be different depending on who you're targeting and if there are any instruments that you specifically use or what.
Nothing beyond, like the equivalent of a QMind as a tool, or we were looking at another one actually recently to see if it was a competitor to QMind, but
not Tracksuit.
No, I think it begins with A, and it's just come out of my head now.
We do external brand
but
tracking.
yeah,
But I think it kind of my head goes to your point that you're like, you appeal to so many different segments. The politician chap, was it the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it was him. Was it him who influenced the decision?
I wasn't involved in it, but
Okay.
we can blame him if that.
We can blame Andy Burnham. He's got quite a good reputation in Manchester.
Yeah.
It's a different audience then, you need to measure probably differently because you can't track what you can use for the B2C audience, right?
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we do right now track like almost like investor perception or I guess people of influence perception, those kind of things.
It's usually probably something that you do, like interviewing them and just take 10 people and kind of make the conclusion what they think about you.
Yeah, we do some qual, but again, that's just direct to consumers, like different pockets of people. But no, that's a good point.
We have time for one last question. Yes, please, at the back.
So I'm Will King, Director at Ethics Media, based over in Lincoln. First thing was, Rox, it's really good to hear someone acknowledge that a brand has to have multiple faces when it's talking to investors or to employers. I've seen too many brands try to take their consumer-facing one to the employment market, and it just doesn't work. So I don't know whether I'm even going to be able to form it into a question, but I think part of the tension you've maybe got here is that you as a head of brand and your brand team are going to be deeply tuned into lots of subjective cues. Like you're going to hold a feeling of what the brand is within you, and you're going to be able to just measure those quickly in a subjective way. Because of course, if you did that objectively, the mental capacity would be insane. What kind of challenges do you think you come up against in embedding that subjectivity in people whose roles are purely like objective, so like data teams, customer service, that kind of thing?
Yeah, bringing them in really early. So when I joined the business, we did a lot of our qual and quant with an external agency. And so across the past 5 months, just bringing that in-house. So now our in-house strategy and insights team, who are already closely plugged into several other parts of the business, and now will own the brand tracking going forward. So they're then incentivized to think about what are the right questions to be asking. What, how do we want to track brand that then can influence business decisions across different parts of the business?
But I think I'm not sure this is your question, Will, but I think a lot of what we've been trying to do today, last year, is codify those subjective responses to things, because one of the fascinating things about Autotrader is there are people that have worked here for 20, 30 years, and some of those deeply understand who we are as a brand and the things that we should be doing and what sounds right for us to say, but it wasn't really codified anywhere. So you'd make something and people would go, well, that doesn't feel right, does it? And it's like, why doesn't it feel right? So working on like tone of voice principles, brand personality, like a more comprehensive brand toolkit have all been like important ways for us to try and codify from these people who are like really
a cross section of the organisation
and people that definitely didn't have brand in the title and you wouldn't have thought of been marketing, but they are the barometers of who we are as a brand. Trying to get that out and codify it in a way that is useful and usable for teams has been a big part of what we've been doing for last year.
Great question. I'm going to end it there and just say my old professor Keith Hanning would say that you're a market-orientated business. So I'm delighted to have met you because you've kind of righted a wrong.
Well, we don't manufacture anything, so I hope we would, if that was the other way.
Well, maybe you have no option but to be. But I think it definitely, some of the stuff you're talking about, for me, explains why you're still a relevant business after 50 years, which is, by the way, bloody hard. Most businesses, as we all know, it's 0.1% that pull off a 50-year survival and thrive 50 years later. So let's put it together, put hands together for Ben and Rox.